Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Canadian Grand Prix, the sixth Grand Prix in the season. We can look at the standings right now. Michael and David are separated by just 2 points. We have Elijah dropped back a little bit farther, and then Chris, obviously, who is not going to be joining us again. And then you have Liam in fifth, just 7 points behind, and then it slowly drops off from there with 38, 36, and then just keeps going down. Sadly, Karan never was able to start a Grand Prix, and he had already dropped out of the season. We can look at the constructors here. You see that Ferrari and Mercedes are actually tied on points going into Canada. So whichever team does better here will definitely be in the lead here. But McLaren is not too far behind. Only 18 points back, obviously, and we see Red Bull there in the back. And then if we look over here at the grids, Michael is back on pole after Monaco. We have Elijah P2, Dylan, the first time getting into the top three there for qualifying. David had a horrible qualifying, only there in P4. Caden down there in P5. And yeah, the rest trickle out down there. And just lights out, and away we go. Elijah gets a great start compared to Michael. They're already going to go side by side down here into the first time. We see David already making his way up there into P4. Elijah goes around the outside and takes P1 there. We see David and Michael now going side by side. Michael gives them a lot of room, way too much there. I don't know if he's going to be able to stay up, but Elijah is already trying to check out here. Not really able to. Michael cuts a little bit there, but stays ahead. David going a little bit right behind him there. We already see the gap starting to form there with Caden in P4. Oh, Dylan goes wide out there. We see Liam there in P6, Nate drop down to P7, and the kicks are all the way back there. And a VSC here, and everyone's just stopping, trying to I think they're trying to start the safety car, but obviously did not work. David cut in front of Elijah, which he should have to give that position back. Same with Liam and Austin. But looks like they're not being ordered to. In fact, Michael has to give the position back to Liam instead. That's interesting, even though the safety car came out before they had made those moves. And the VSC is now ended. We can look back. We see Austin and Liam trying to box in Michael over there. Elijah's trying to catch up here to David, who have already checked out 3.7 seconds ahead. Now, one thing that we need to be aware of is the fact that at the moment, Michael and Elijah's intervals are actually swapped. So what you see on Elijah's interval is actually Michael's, and what you see on Michael's is actually Elijah's. So Elijah's not 9/10 off, he's only 5/10. I mean, as they're coming up over here to this next little chicane area, Elijah's still trailing really far back. I could only imagine David is kind of surprised that he wasn't able to check away and check out of the race like he normally is able to do once he gets in first. Elijah's been able to keep this pace up already for 2 laps. He's able to stay ahead. I feel like he would have stayed ahead if David had not made that move. And I think that the interval glitch is very noticeable right now, as it says Elijah's 5 seconds behind David, which is obviously not true. He's only that 1/10. Who could be trying to make a move onto the inside. He fakes it there. David not even trying to defend that, knowing he won't make that move. I mean, the stewards have definitely, I believe, screwed over both Michael and Elijah's race. Elijah got fairly, he got pretty quick off the line there, still able to get back up into second, but Michael had dropped down to 5th place as David, Austin, and Liam all overtook him during the safety car, and he was not allowed to go back to his original position. So we see this. Michael's slowly closing the gap, 4.7 seconds behind here, but Obviously, they're now probably dumping a lot of battery. We see him there in the back. Back up to the 5-second mark. As they make their way up there into turn 1, they're still separated by just 4/10 there. And as Elijah slides around, that was not what you wanted to see when you were chasing David there. But I mean, we could see also Michael there in the back. As we saw him slide there just behind. No camera was on him. I'm guessing we'll start to see him drop there. He already dropped to 4th, 5th, down into 6th place from 3rd. And I mean, that's not what you wanted to see there, but obviously there's not much that he could have done there. He probably tapped the grass a little bit. I mean, no, both Michael and Elijah have a lot of ground to make up. Michael a lot more than Elijah, but only 3.8 behind him there. We could see a little bit of an onboard here from Elijah. Changed his helmet there, at least for this one race. And I mean, Colton here, who's down in 9th. The last time we saw him race was in Australia, where he also finished there in last place, which was 8th at the time. And I mean, Liam in 8th place, Dylan down in 7th, compared to what we saw from them in very similar to what we saw from them in Imola as well. Of course, Liam not racing at his home race there in Monaco, and this being Dylan's home race in Canada. This is not a show that you would want to put on for your fans. See that Michael's up to that 2/10 mark, as we see next to Elijah's name, even though it is Michael's interval. On the opposite side, Elijah's dropped down to 5.7 seconds from David. And David just appeared on our cameras, dropped really far there, now 5/10. We saw that Michael made the move around Nate there. Now we see that there, Elijah's back within that DRS distance. He's back down behind that 1 second mark, which is the crucial mark to give you DRS here. Michael has 7 seconds to gain on his teammate, who is in 3rd place. This is his 3rd showing after his really sad DNF there in Monaco, where he was beating his teammate almost the entire race and had that unlucky DNF there on the safety car restart. But Dylan has made that move around Austin. He was in 7th. He's now there in 6th, as Elijah gets a not the best exit. But But definitely apparently better than I had thought, as he had gained a 10th on Dylan there. And Liam makes the move there around Austin, as looks like Colton there had just DNF'd. Looks like no safety car is being brought out, which would have helped the Ferraris, which have dropped extremely far back. 9 seconds. Caden is 9 seconds behind Elijah, and Michael is 7 seconds behind Caden. It would have definitely helped them, but also Dylan, who is 13 seconds behind Nate. And I mean, Nate also not too far behind Michael, only 9/10. Only 9/10. We know that he has the pace to keep up with the leaders here, but he's been stuck there in the midfield for some time. Still fighting for his first ever podium. And I mean, David has already checked out again, 2.6 seconds ahead of Elijah here. Michael seems to not be gaining any time on Caden, still the 7.9s. As we can actually see a more clearer interval count here, as Michael just seems to be stuck at that 800ths, but Elijah's is back to the normal spot. As Nate makes that move around Michael. No, it looks like Michael has pitted for new tires here. And as Liam also makes the move, Michael has dropped to 7th place. It is the farthest down, 8th place. It is the farthest down he has ever been. Down to P8, quickly making the move back around Austin, though, not letting him interfere with him for that long, knowing what he can do. Already gaining that second ahead of him. But he has almost... Yeah, he has a lot of time ahead of him to make up there. But, I mean, David is... we see David right now just absolutely checking out, 3.1 seconds ahead. We saw Michael make that move around Liam, back up into P6 already. After Dylan, he'll still have another 13 seconds to make up just for 4th, and then another 9 just to get near P3. He's won't be fighting for the win, but hopefully for a podium this race. I mean, he's already gained that 3.7 seconds on Liam, so he is pushing this car as fast as possible here. But that will be destroying his tires in the long run. So is Elijah, who's now 11 seconds ahead of Caden, who's in 3rd, and a comfortable 3rd place too. He's now 10 seconds ahead of Nate, who's in P4, who, as it stands, will not be getting that podium that he has been so desperately trying to get. This goes around. We see that the 3rd, 4th, and 5th places are all within around that 12-second gap, as Michael makes that move around Dylan there. We can only assume that he is also around the 13-second mark behind Nate. Also makes the move around Liam here, who looks like he seems to be pitting for newer tires. David could already be lapping the driver in last place, only 11 laps out of 35 into this race. Elijah does seem to be getting a little bit of time though. Only 3.9 seconds. It's definitely pushing, these guys are definitely pushing their cars extremely hard here, but David has checked out, and I don't think 4 seconds is definitely a doable gap to close, but with the pace we've seen David do and give throughout this season, I don't believe it would be possible for Elijah to catch up if he maintains this place too. And as Nate pits for new tires, we see Michael move up into P4. Do not know how far back he is from Caden at the moment. And I mean, David has already increased that gap to 5.1 seconds compared to just 1 lap ago. It was like 3.8. So Austin is now pitting for new tires. As we saw Dylan down in P7. Top 3 have yet to pit, but we don't know how far a gap they have to Michael. I can only assume it's probably around the 18-second mark. Maybe even a little bit more. And the home race for Dylan being down in P7 is not what you would want to see. You could only hope that he makes his way up maybe into the top 5 by the end of the race. And it looks like Elijah slid a little bit here. The gap is increased to 9.2. Looks like Michael is not too far behind Caden here. They had a little switch up. Looks like Caden must have pitted for the new tires here. He's now 22 seconds behind Elijah. And Michael seems to be right with him here. If we can look back here at Elijah, we can now see the gap though between Michael and Caden, which is just 1.6. But it's increasing every single second here as the fresh tires. Looks like Elijah here is going into the pit lane. He's gonna have to hope for a quick pit stop here. Back onto the medium tires. But I don't believe Caden will be... He is close enough for this. Michael's now 2.9 seconds behind. We see Caden just getting near the first turn. So he's still fairly close to Elijah. The gap is only 3.3. As Michael is sliding and going away every single second. Now a 3.5 second gap between him and Caden, and a 26 second gap between Elijah and David. So Michael slid a little bit here as it's now 7.7 or 7.8 second gap. Maybe that same spot that he slid earlier. Seems to be though that Caden is still able to catch up. He's gained about 0.6 on Elijah here. Elijah gaining on the straight, but as we can see the time go down, clearly has just pitted here. It's a 7-second gap, which means it's now 8. But compared to the 11-second gap that it was before Elijah pitted, he has gained 3 seconds on him. So Michael's now dropped down to 10 seconds behind Caden. This pace that he has had has really been quite disappointing. Now as these tires start to fire up for Elijah, we can see the gap stay around the same here. He's starting to gap Caden a little bit more. Obviously not too much here. So they're still around the 3-second mark from each other. I mean, Dylan here, just 1/10 behind Liam here, but not really able to make this overtake by the looks of it. Looks like he's going now though, and he does seem to get it. A 14-second gap though to Caden, as now 16 as Michael seems to be dropping even farther, and Nate is just 14 seconds behind Michael here. Now 17-second gap. Now 18 seconds. This is quite surprising. I've never seen Caden actually beat Michael's pace by this large of a margin. I mean, in Imola we had Michael, who was really struggling on those tires. In Monaco we had Caden with the DNF, and now again Michael is struggling with tires. We can start to see where their weaknesses lie, as they're both two really strong teammates that can work together, but obviously they have their weaknesses. We see that looks like Nate is now pitting for new tires here as Dylan gets up into P5. The highest he has been since the start of the race, where he started out in P3. He's dropped extremely far. Looks like Liam is also pitting for these new tires here, as he's now down into P8 as Austin gets up into P6. Nate quickly overtakes him again, not letting Austin get a chance. Look, we see that Michael has dropped now to 34 seconds behind Caden here. He must have pitted again for new tires. And I mean, as we see, he's Dylan is only 5 seconds behind Michael, but not too far here. So we see Liam here is now getting lapped by Elijah. Looks like they're trying to use each other for DRS maybe. The gap between David and Elijah is still around that 10-second mark. We see the gap has risen between Elijah and Caden to 4 seconds here. I mean, it has gained Liam nearly a second on Austin here. Looks like Liam goes way too far, breaks really late, and he loses a bit of time there, but David is now increasing the gap up to 11 seconds. The gap between Elijah and Caden up to 4.5. Not nearly as much of a... He'd have to cut that down by another 11 seconds before Caden were to pit again in order for him to have a chance at going after him. But with how we've seen him deal with tire wear, I bet you he's just trying to bring it home. As we see Austin, Liam has gained 6 seconds on him there. See Austin just in front as he's about to get lapped by Elijah too. And he lets Liam through, bringing Liam up to 7th position. And looks like Dylan is pitting there. We saw that his interval has stopped moving, which usually indicates a pit stop. As we see Nate's time drop tremendously. I believe that means it was right, and he's now down just 1.6. Now 2.9 seconds behind Dylan there. Michael has dropped the gap between him and his teammate down to 28, but it is still not off. As we see Elijah slide a little bit. The gap between him and David has increased to 13 seconds. David is just on another one today, just like we saw in Monaco. His pace is unmatched. He's not able, like, no one is able to keep up with him pace-wise. And I mean, we see Liam there slide a little bit. Makes me really wonder what would have happened if, makes me wonder what would have happened if, both Michael and Elijah stayed in the front at the start of the race instead of getting dropped down. David would have had a battle through them, but I want to know if he would still be as far in the lead as he is, and I want to know if Michael would be as far back as he is. Both Elijah and David are out for as long as they are. They've been out for about 9 laps now on these new tires. As we've seen what's been happening now with Elijah, he's now sliding. One of the best people at preserving their tires. And him sliding really shows how bad the tire wear is out here. I mean, he's increased the gap now between him and Caden to 4.8 seconds. Compared to the just under 3 seconds as it was from lap 15 or so. But has lost time to Caden, or to David still. Their gap now 14 seconds. I mean, with 13 laps to go for this race, you can only imagine that everyone is trying to think about maybe settling in at least the top 4, or settling into their new their positions, as I don't think anything will change by the end. Everyone is way too separated. The only ones that are somewhat close is Elijah and Caden. But Nate is slowly catching up though to Dylan, only 4 seconds behind. That could still be a huge change that happens at the end of the race, as there's still 13 laps left. Now we see that they're starting to... Elijah just has to go now. Not able to wait for Liam, which was probably holding him back a little bit, waiting for Liam to catch up, as we know how much their paces differ, the teammates. who are in third place in the constructors here. But they're not too far off. Maybe Elijah had made a little bit of a mistake there, and Liam got a good exit to bring him back. But the McLaren pairing, just 18 points behind Mercedes and Ferrari, who are tied on points. And as it stands, Mercedes will get the lead of the constructors here, with a 25 and 10 points from their drivers versus 12 and 15. They'll be ahead by just 3 points. I meant 8. But as it stands, it seems like the McLaren pairing, they've had their ups and downs. Obviously, Liam's podium in Saudi Arabia, Elijah's P2 in Monaco, but obviously, as we see right now, Liam down in P7, just like how Elijah was back in Saudi Arabia. So they've had their ups and downs. They're still fairly similar, just separated by 20 points at the moment in the standings. So Elijah comes in for the pit stop. As it stands, they will be us. And I mean, as it stands, that 20-point gap will be increased by quite a lot, by about up to 32 points. See now, Caden just 1.8 seconds behind, I believe, as he pitted as well. As Michael is now only 16 seconds behind him, but still extremely far behind. We see that Caden is now within that DRS range. Sadly, did not get it on the straight, but will hopefully get it on that next one. Now, Elijah seems to be completely unaware of Caden even being there. Still trying to warm up his tires, not really thinking or worrying about him here, as he has a decent run here. They're only 6/10 separated here, but he will have the DRS. Seems to have now noticed him playing a bit more defensive here, trying to pick up the pace, but Caden right behind him there with the DRS. Can't shake him that easily. They're both 18 seconds behind David as of right now, and they are around 20 seconds ahead of Michael. So they are completely alone right now. Just these two right next to each other, just separated by about 6/10. As Elijah taps the grass, as we saw, losing a lot of time here as he comes up to this next straight, which will give Caden a huge chunk there of DRS, and then the main straight after. Looks like Caden gets a great exit here. Caden had a good exit, but it's not enough. Elijah goes defensive there, and that was great defending there, having to keep him out. Still only 3/10 behind, but obviously with a little bit of battery management there, it's not too horrible. As Liam goes up into 7th, and then up into 6th, and then quickly drops back down to 7th. Elijah had a little bit of a slide. Caden just scared to go for an overtake, knowing how fast Elijah can quickly pass him again, and knowing how good Elijah's defense is, he is scared to commit to a move. Seems like Nate has also been lapped by the top three there. Also recharging, but now 7/10 ahead. Quickly increasing his lead, or his gap now, but that quickly dropped. Because now Caden is going to get DRS once again. Drop down to 2/10, and Caden again not going for the move. Just staying behind, trying to play patient, but once Elijah finds his pace again, he will disappear from the Caden will disappear from the rearview mirror here. They've now dropped 19 seconds behind David, but 27 seconds ahead of Michael here. You see Caden there, now dropping down to 8/10 behind. Elijah's not out of the Caden's not out of that DRS range here. Just got back in. As Caden's pace is starting to drop. Once Elijah gets out of these DRS zones, he can really leave Caden in the dust there. Caden was trying his hardest there to get up into P2. With 6 laps left, he still needs to keep that pace up, but he's just dropping farther and farther back. Does not get DRS here like he normally has, so he's going to be a lot slower. And as I believe that is Austin just in front of Elijah. If Elijah can catch up to him by this back straight, he can get DRS on Austin and then start going even faster around here. As he does not get the DRS, but this will be the 3rd time Austin will have been lapped, I believe. As the gap between Michael and Caden is now 42 seconds. As we saw Austin spin going around that first turn there, we saw Elijah have a little snap. I mean, we have a 40-second, a 1 minute, a 26, a 25, a 10, a 20, and then now that 2-second gap between Elijah and Caden there, which Caden has started to fall off behind him. And as the gaps just increase, nobody seems to be closing any gaps. The gaps just seem to be getting larger, which is actually pretty impressive. Everyone in front seems to be faster than the person in the back. And I mean, now if we even look, Austin's time is just completely frozen, like he just stopped on track somewhere. We see, we saw him stopped on track here. Probably, as we see, David is now left 5th place still in here. And we see now that Austin has been disqualified. Both kick drivers out of this race. First time since Australia that both of them have been present for a race, and they are now just gone. As we see, David passes line. He just has laps 33, 34, and then 35 to complete. Nearing the end of the Canadian Grand Prix, this would be his 3rd victory, the first person in this series to get 3 victories. Chris came close with 2 before the Red Bulls dropped out of the season. They both quit. And compared to his championship rival, Michael, who's only had 1 victory around here, and Elijah, who is slowly catching up, he's been chasing after that victory for a pretty long time, getting a 3rd place in Bahrain, a 2nd in Monaco, 2 4ths in Imola in Australia. Here, he's been near the top step, but he's yet to actually stand on it. He would have been there. He got into the lead again at the start of the Canadian Grand Prix, and just the VSC had screwed him over. He had almost succeeded when he went around Michael there at the very beginning. He would have probably left him in the dust, as we've seen how Michael has been driving in today. Would not have been able to keep up. Saw a little bit of a slide there from David. And all David has to do here is just bring it home. Same with the top 3, as they all have their huge gaps. Last time we saw the gap between Michael and Caden, it was around the 40-second mark. And this year is definitely going to be something. After the race in Monaco, which was really dominant here, except for that little stretch where Michael was in the lead, nobody could touch David and his pace around Monaco. And I mean, that seems to be the same thing around here. He had a horrible qualifying session only down there in P4, but he was able to recover, quickly get up into P1, and he has not looked back since, increasing the gap between him and second to 22 seconds, lapping what is now 7th place 3 times by the end of the race. It was Austin that he had lapped 3 times. I think he's only lapped Liam twice. Having to bring it home, he will have the most wins out of anyone here. He will he'll be up there at the top step the most. He'll be taking the championship in both the drivers and the constructors for Mercedes and himself. He'll be leading them. And as he crosses the final turn here, David wins the Canadian Grand Prix, takes his third victory for Mercedes, and a dominant one at that. I mean, Elijah tried his hardest here. We can see himself. We can see him right here. He tried his hardest to take the top step, but sadly he won't be able to, as he'll come in P2. Caden back there in P3. And I mean, Caden has outdriven his teammate for the second time now. He's really seems to be showing that he is a good second driver. But as we look, Caden in the back crashes, and he has been DNF'd, which. But as we see here, though, David goes up into the lead. As you see, though, Caden has gotten points, as it is a rule that since he finished at least 90% of the race, he gets last place points. And since that was, I believe, 8th place, he'll be getting 8th place points, which is only 4. It's not enough to compare to the 15, which what he was going to get to put him up there into 6th. So we see Mercedes overtake, go into the lead there. We see McLaren and Ferrari only separated by 13, and Mercedes and Ferrari separated by 16. This is going to become an interesting title fight going into Austria. See you guys there at the next race.